The Kingsley Art Club presents another in our series of artist studio visits, which are in lieu of our in-person guest lecture series. This visit, as well as our other arts programs, is made possible by the dues and contributions of the members of the Kingsley to further our mission of bringing arts and arts education to the community.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nancy Lawrence, co-president of the Kingsley Art Club, and I'm here to introduce our latest video, which features the curator, Angelik Vizcarrondo-Laboy, who curated a show currently at the Crocker. And just to tell you a bit about her, she's a Los Angeles-based independent curator, writer, and arts administrator of contemporary art and craft, with a special interest in ceramics. Her current research investigates the aesthetics of optimism and the subversive power of humor, cuteness, and leisure as tools of protest. Amplifying the voices of BIPOC artists is central to her practice. You're going to see that when you see the tour of the exhibit at the Crocker. She was chosen by the NCECA, the National Council for Education in the Ceramic Arts, for their keynote exhibit. Angelik is incredibly qualified and has transitioned her career into primarily being a professional curator. Belonging received rave reviews all during the NCECA conference here. And it is fortunately going to be up until May 8th, so you will have a chance to see that. One of the things you'll find is that Angelik was interested in artists who represent their identity and explore their own identity in their artwork. She says she likes idea art, not just something that's perhaps pretty. And I think you're going to find that very interesting as you see these artists who have explored their identities. Thank you, enjoy.
My name is Angelik Vizcarrondo-Laboy, and I'm the curator of Belonging, the 2022 NCECA annual exhibition. Belonging is a universal truth of humanity, so sort of the desire for belonging, and that's why I thought there would be a lot of work related to that, and it turns out there was. We have a whole variety of works. We have representational work, abstract work, work that's more installation-based, and also a lot of video work because I think I see more of ceramics in the expanded field, and I think video work is part of that. I'm always open to mixed media, so there's a lot of that in the show, and also I'm interested in glitter and fun colors and things like that. But there is also a lot of earth tones in the show. I mean, I specifically picked this wall color behind me to talk about, to sort of hint to earth and then also wet clay. Like when you think of earthenware, this is terracotta basically. There's sort of a section on our relationship to nature and non-human species. There's a section about connection, misconnections and disconnection. There's a lot about nostalgia, immigration, about sort of otherness and standing out, and then also community and family. This is the work of Natalia Arbelaez, who's one of the artists that I invited to be a part of the show. She's a New York-based artist, Colombian American, and this looks it's very representational of what her work looks like. She often works with terracotta, which links back to that paint at the front, and maiolica, which is this white tin glaze. There's a lot of history here. But basically, the terracotta is supposed to link back to indigenous pottery from Colombia and from the Andes region. And then the gold also represents the Muisca people, which are the indigenous people of Colombia, who, if you know the story of El Dorado, that's where it comes from. This one here represents the Spanish colonizers that came to Latin America, that came to the New World. quote unquote, and brought with them maiolica. So maiolica was big in Europe. It's this glaze that was used in Italy in the Renaissance and Spain in sort of the Moorish tiles, and they used it also to replicate porcelain. So it was that she's trying to show the assimilation that happened materially through this glaze. So if you go to Colombia now, it's rare to find sort of terracotta work, pottery. It's more likely that you're going to find maiolica. So she's trying to show the effects of colonization throughout time, like even now to today in the present. And so she made these sort of soldiers in battle. This is the work of Salvador Jiménez-Flores. He's a Chicago-based artist, Mexican-American. In 2016, he started a series of works that look similar to this. So there's this use of the cactus. And that was a response to the election, to the presidential election at the time, which was sort of very controversial, specifically in the comments about Mexicans, about Latinx immigrants. And so he was sort of prompted by that to make this series of work that uplifted Latinx immigrants, but also sort of denounce what was being said about them. And so he uses this anthropomorphism with the cactus. The cactus is a metaphor for the resilience of the Latinx community in the United States. You have to think of a cactus as this plant that lives in one of the harshest environments in the world, and not only survives but thrives. And this is his most pointed work to date. It's sort of very straightforward. He is putting a finger up in the air towards systemic racism in the United States. You know, it's something that hopefully we're all working towards dismantling, but something that is still very present. Another theme that came about in the show is the domestic, so home, and those kinds of spaces. And so the area that I'm standing on, there's a few pieces that have to do with the home or sort of a domestic language. So this is a work of Linda Lopez, who is based in Arkansas. And she has a very interesting story. She was born in the United States to a Mexican father and a Vietnamese mother, and in their household, nobody spoke the same language. So the dad spoke Spanish, the mom spoke Vietnamese, and Linda learned English in school. So they had to sort of come up with different ways of speaking to each other. Her mom had a very animistic language, so inanimate objects, she would say things like the toilet, she would say, don't put too much toilet paper in the toilet because you will get sick. So things like that, very personified. And so Linda grew up with this sort of very active imagination. And there's a lot of that, I feel like, childhood wonder that still comes through in her work. These she calls furries. And I've been saying that it's like a big dust bunny, but it can also be a plant, it can be mop looking. It looks like all the things that you could find around a home. So this is the work of R.J. Sturgis, and this is also part of that domestic section, as very obviously it hints at a chair. So the story behind this is that when he was a kid, he would go to his grandparents' house, and his grandfather had a tufted chair that he really, really sort of enjoyed hanging out on. He got lost on the little buttons. He would spend time playing with the buttons. And so he's basically showing how he was consumed by that activity of spending time with those buttons. And so you see this blue form, looks kind of like a body, and it's sort of sucking up that cushion. And he feels that is just how he likes to sort of spend his time in life, which is being consumed by his art. So this is the work of Alina Hayes, who is from the Ukraine. She lives in Los Angeles, but She comes from the Ukraine. And so in this piece, she's thinking about the word alien. She's a legal alien, I think. That's the word for, or the title for it. And so she often thinks about that and the definition of alien. And she has a series called Bloop, Bloop. And she makes these blobs, but always the surface treatment is really special, really unique and bold. A lot of neons, a lot of flocking, but this time she did a rubberized surface. It looks almost like car paint. It's really, really cool. But she's thinking about this idea of standing out, but also camouflaging, which a lot of immigrants have to do in the United States to feel like they can belong or fit in. So that's what this work is about, and I'm really happy to include it. So this is the work of Deshaun Peoples, and Deshaun identifies as Black. He's a Black American. And his work, this work specifically, is called Bloodkin. These are pieces that he's thrown, and I believe maybe slip cast the spheres, but it's multiples that come together with the bent steel. The colors of the piece are supposed to signify the Pan-African flag, and the bent metal signifies the guns that the Black Panther Party took up to protest and defend themselves. And this piece is about taking up space, which is what a lot of people of color are just generally trying to do. Specifically, what he's trying to do is that he's using this dinnerware, these objects that usually are on a table at a dinner service, might not take that much room. He's making it a little inconvenient with this setup, so like I said, this is multiples, so you can take the cup and use it. This is the work of Kevin Cow, and these are all made from molds. So he made a bunch of molds and then slip cast a bunch of pieces, and then he put them together all in different ways. So each one of these is different. There's not one that repeats. And he used the same techniques that were used to make the terracotta warriors in China, which is, he's Chinese, so that's his heritage, and he wanted to sort of bring that technique up to modernity, to the present. And this piece has to do with the East Asian community and how a lot of people think that everybody sort of looks the same, and while a lot of people might have the same hair color or the same eye color, every single person is unique and very different, and that's what these buns, these hair buns, are supposed to signify. So this is the work of Jasmine Fetterman, and she is actually trans, and so this work has a lot to do with her identity and how growing up, basically going to the bathroom using a urinal, which, as you can see, this is a tandem urinal. It was sort of a rite of passage, and it was going to the public restroom had a lot to do with performing masculinity. And so she's thinking of this sort of stage for performing masculinity in this tandem urinal, which she has covered in rhinestones. It's sort of a sight to behold, the sparkliness of it all. This is the work of Cannupa Hanska Luger, who is an artist based in New Mexico. He's an indigenous artist, and so a lot of his work has to do with celebrating the indigenous communities around North America generally, but especially his own community. He's one of the invited artists, and this goes along with a video piece, which the piece is actually called Belonging. And then I was looking through his website and saw that he had a piece called Belonging, and I was like, perfect. But he made this sculpture new for the show, and this is life-size skeleton of a buffalo bison. The narrative behind the work and the video work is that when the settlers came to the Great Plains, they decimated the population of the buffalo bison which the indigenous communities, the Great Plains Indians, survived on. The Great Plains is one of the most endangered environments in the United States, and it's because of that decimation. There's this sort of lasting effect, negative effect because of what happened. So that's what he's trying to bring attention to with this work. Belonging turned out to be a very sort of rich and deep concept. Like, it's just one word, but somehow there's just so much in it. And that's something that really came through in the show with the 34 artists. They each have a different interpretation of what that means to them. And I kind of see it as journeys, like each of them have a different journey. And hopefully when people visit, they might find somebody they identify with or a work that they identify with and their own journey towards belonging.
I hope you enjoyed the video and that you will have an opportunity or take an opportunity to go down and see Belonging while it's still up at the Crocker. It should be a fascinating show for you to look around now that you've heard about how it was all chosen and put together. And we look forward to having you come to hear our next video presentation.